What's up, Salt Company?
Hey guys.
We're back.
We're back for our last one.
Last one, sad.
Wow. 3 Fireside Salts down, 0 to go, huh?
After this one.
That's right. They ain't done yet.
One left.
What are we talking about tonight? Beansy?
Well, if it wasn't obvious by our attire and Derek's horrendous robe,
okay.
we're talking about rest. And it's really fitting because you guys are at the end of another semester,
week.
Your first semester, whatever it is. Yeah.
Finals week, baby. Hope you did good.
Which is amazing. You guys are incredible. We're so proud of you. And we're excited to talk about rest. Hopefully something that will be really helpful for you guys to hear right now. And we'll even kind of go into a season of rest of like Christmas, seeing our family, stepping away from kind of normal rhythms and stuff. So Perfect time to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's kind of an oxymoron, like having a talk on rest, you know, like Bible reading, prayer, that makes sense to me. Like that seems like a skill to get better at almost. Rest seems like it should come naturally to all of us, but I mean, I find in my own life it doesn't. Like rest of all things is kind of hard. Like it's hard for me to at least feel rested, you know, to like feel the fruit of a restful life, you know. And so that's why we're going to talk a little bit about that and why that is, and hopefully give you guys some ways to just enjoy resting over break.
So where are we going?
Great. Well, we've kind of chunked it down into like 3 portions, 3 steps, if you will, to actually like enjoy rest. And so the first section we're going to talk about is like defining rest and talking about the way the Bible talks about rest as like stopping. And so step 1 is to stop, you know, working, laboring, whatever, being productive. 2 is to repent of the ways that we rest poorly and unplug from a lot of the like technology that makes low bar rest easy. And then 3 is to rest ambitiously, and we're just going to give you guys some really tangible, a laundry list of things, if you will, that you could do if you're trying to rest today. So should be good. I'm excited.
That sounds great.
Great.
So starting with number 1.
Yeah, stop. Yeah. So that's one that we shouldn't really have to spend a ton of time on, because the nature of being a college student is rest is a little bit built into your schedule. You know, this might be the one we'd have to spend a significant amount of time on with, you know, the average like adult in our culture that's like out of college and works 40, 50 hours a week. Like they don't have rhythms of rest built in.
Doesn't get like a 3-week break.
Totally.
Yeah,
so you guys should be stopping from classes, right? And maybe some of you have a job over break, which is fine. So you can apply point number 1 to yourself. But that's what the word Sabbath in the Bible means, is stop, cease. We have an addiction to being productive almost in the American culture for sure. And so that's part of why rest is hard, is it's not really celebrated, right?
Definitely. Yep, that's good. And I think too, we forget that it was originally part of God's design. So when we are going, great that you guys get the natural rhythm of like stopping, but that's not in a normal, like you said, like a normal person's life. Once they've graduated, it's not really built in. Maybe if you're a teacher, I don't know, those kind of things. But like, it is in God's design. We've seen it from the creation of the world. God intentionally chose to create and then stop creating for a moment and just enjoy and pause. And so, we see it in
and if God
Jesus'
needs
life
to,
and in the early church.
If God needs to rest, like surely me as a human being, you know, needs to rest. Or
there
maybe,
has to be, something there, like, something good in it.
Yeah, he does rest, so he definitely intends for us to rest. And so, I think that part of the reason it's hard too is culture's changed on like leisure and rest, and culture's always going to change on a variety of issues. But God established it in Genesis 1 and intends for it to be for our souls today still. But I mean, if you look back in the early 1900s, like leisure was a status symbol. Like if you had time to go chill at the tennis courts and do nothing, you were like a person of power and influence and wealth. But now a person of power and influence and wealth is someone that like works tireless hours, and like leisure's bad. And so we want to find like the biblical middle ground.
Yeah,
so
that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. But,
question that I remember a student had asked this question when, we asked you guys kind of what questions you have about rest. You guys were wondering, okay, rest is good, God does it, so is it wrong for me to, like, schedule things in my life? Or, what would you say to...
Yeah. No, that is great. I mean...
Like, pursue, to be ambitious and, like, pursue a great job or, like, things like that.
Yeah, obviously that's good, and there's a reason God worked for 6 days and rested on the 7th one, you know, so there are those 6 days still to be. That's for a different talk. But, I mean, it is possible to rest too much, you know, it is laziness is the ditch of, you know, trying to rest, but often in ways that are not helpful too, you know, and so really in laziness you're not doing nothing, you're just pursuing a different sort of activity that is avoidance of work or whatever that you know, obviously work isn't bad, and so I think before we even move on from stopping and what is rest, bare bones stopping, it'd be helpful if I mentioned just a couple resources that Bree and I leaned heavily on for this talk. I looked up the notes that I had taken on a couple books that I'd read that were mind-blowing for me on rest and just how to do it well. One, a spiritual book by John Mark Comer that I have with me. This was something I read like January 1st of this year. It just came out. And he just has a really interesting perspective on as he looks at the lifestyle of Jesus. You know, he notices that a lot of us want the, like, peace, the joy, the rest, like, state that Jesus has, but we completely bypass the, like, lifestyle that Jesus lives of, like, escaping to solitude and simplicity and, you know, long moments of prayer and isolation almost. And so that's kind of his premise, and he has some really, really helpful practical stuff that we're going to steal a lot of as we move on to the next two sections. But another one is a guy by the name of Cal Newport wrote Digital Minimalism, which is a secular book, but also, you know, it's interesting that a secular writer would even write about something. It speaks to the fact that rest or, you know, leisure in a technology-driven world is difficult. And so obviously this, you know, from a secular perspective, it's an issue, and he says a lot of great stuff too. So
that's good.
Yeah, shall we move to number 2?
So stopping. Yep.
Great.
And then we move on to confess and unplug.
Yes. What
do those mean?
Why would we have to do that? I think, you know, if we're gonna achieve, like, enjoyable rest, we've got to recognize that there's something in ourselves that doesn't rest well a lot of the time, and there's reasons for that, and we can make excuses for that, but at the end of the day it's like, I just need to confess or even repent, if you will, of, like, days that I've utterly wasted, you know, and, like, in the attempt to get rest, but going about it in a way that was outside of God's design slightly, and is an addiction to things that in the end aren't that rewarding. And so we all know the category that we're talking about, right? With, like, social media, video games, Netflix, easily bingeable things
that are just easy to pursue,
for sure.
I think that's what I started thinking about too, as I thought of, like, confess and unplugging. Like, this category as a whole is just like, man, I tend to go to what's easy, not necessarily, like, am intentional about choosing what's gonna be good for me in the long. I don't have, like, vision for, like, what rest could be at times. That means the easiest thing to do is just, like, unlock my phone and find the app that I want to get on or whatever, and that leads to, I mean, a lot of time, like, wasted on there, and then you leave and you're like, I don't feel great.
So that's, like, really what we're doing tonight as we even stop for a second and learn about rest, is hopefully just, like, deciding to be intentional about how we're going to spend our rest time going forward, as we do have, like, a built-in season of stopping, most of us. And so we could not handle a topic like rest without talking about the ways we typically fill our time in these rest seasons, right? And
definitely.
Some of the ways that stuff can be unhelpful. So, I mean, what are some of the pitfalls, even, like, with yourself, like, you big video gamer, like, how do you typically fall into ruts?
I got the headset, I got the whole 2 screens for who knows what reason.
I've seen it.
That's
barely has room for a bed in her room.
Huge gamer girl. I did at one point love video games. My childhood, we played some Nintendo 64. It was
I'm a gamer.
Good old days.
Was a big gamer. Man, when I got a PS3, it was like, I thought I'd stepped into heaven.
Your life.
Yeah, for sure. Modern Warfare 2 for days.
My brother played that. Nice. But no, it's not actually video games for me. But, I mean, I think I've, walked with the Lord long enough and have learned things about rest and Sabbath that have helped me. Like, I think there have been times where I've rested in ways that kind of like recenter me and remind me of what's even important in life and are just like really enjoyable days for me to have and times for me to have. But I think when I'm not resting well, I think, two tendencies I would have would be get on my phone and be on there for way too long and then not like set a limit for myself on something like Netflix.
Totally.
Like I love on a day that I have off like watching a movie in the afternoon or something like that, but if I don't limit myself, like, I'm going to sit down and watch this, and I'm going to be done, I'm going to go do something else, then a day can go by, and I feel worse than it began.
Totally.
So I'd say, those are probably two pitfalls when it comes to rest for me that I have to be pretty mindful of.
Yeah, and so if we were to, like, articulate in just a short phrase, like what we're talking about, of repenting and unplugging from, it's like this idea of low-quality leisure, if you will, right? This mindless entertainment that's like so accessible nowadays that never even was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously it's like there's stuff that's built in that's addictive about these things. And three traits, if you will, of low quality leisure. I mean, we just mentioned like most of the broader categories. But if I was to simplify something that all these things have in common, like Netflix, social media, video games, it's easy passive consumption would be the first thing. Like, I'm just passively consuming. I don't even have to move besides maybe my thumbs. Right?
Yeah.
And I just consume, and then it even like auto starts and goes to the next one for me. I don't even have to like start the next episode, right? It's so passive. Second, it's like usually, if not most often, done in isolation, right? Like, sure, I can play video games online with other people. Let's
I'm looking
not go
at
there.
Another person's thing on Instagram or
Totally.
Yeah.
But I'm doing the activity like most of the time by myself. Now, if you want to have other people over and like play video games, like I think that's great and that's enjoyable. But if you're spending hours by yourself scrolling or on Netflix or playing video games, there's something innately isolating about the activity.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And then third, a mark of these things is when spent in large doses, you always, on the back end, feel less rested than you do rested. Right? And so they're ultimately not...
That's like a major tell of low quality.
Restful.
Yeah.
And you're trying to rest, right? But it's again, it's not we're not harking on the things themselves in like low quantities. Like I'm for sure going to watch some Netflix, check out some social media, and it would probably be good for me to pick up, dust off the old video game console. Like, that would actually be super restful for me and sounds pretty good in this moment as I think about it, right? But to just, like, give myself fully to those things to a point where they kind of, like, rule me, and I don't rule them, that is where I end up feeling like, dang it, I'm not ready to go back to work because I just wasted a bunch of time, right?
So, okay, how do you get, like, some control over that? Like, what are things, I guess, that you do to...
let's get really practical with this section for a bit before we move on to like some high quality leisure activities. And I think there's things that we could go a million different ways with this, but I think if we just were to focus on phone, we could even come up with a ton. And so for me, one of the things that's been so helpful, again, play to your strengths is something I like to say, and my strength is not my heart and my ability to just like be disciplined in the moment and stop scrolling, right? And so when Apple came out with the screen time stuff, it was like revolutionary for a lot of people and eye-opening of like how much time we actually do spend on our phones. And I remember, being in a place of clarity where it was like, I don't want to spend as much time as I do, on my phone. And so Sydney and I set screen time locks for each other that we agreed upon. And for me, it was like, I can get through everyone's feed on Instagram in 10 minutes, and that be totally enough time in a day for me to spend, catching up with the people that I follow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set that, and then, she forgot the password, and so it's been that for like 2 years now. And I don't regret it.
Yeah, because that's what you guys also did. You gave each other.
Yeah, like she had my password.
Yeah.
I have hers.
That's good.
And no
Cindy
one has
just
mine
forgot
now.
it,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Yeah, good job.
So like 10 minutes though. I mean, I think I use it now on my phone. Like if I just have to post something, like 10 minutes is enough time for me if I want to post something that day to just like do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't enough time, obviously, for me to waste my whole day.
Yep.
So
that's a good one.
yeah, that's one. What about you? Got a pro tip for yourself?
Yeah, a long time ago, I just turned notifications off from anything other than... I still get text messages to my front screen and calls to my front screen. But anything else besides that, my email, Instagram, whatever it may be.
Banners and badges.
Oh, they would drive me crazy now if I were to put them back on. But they make it every time, because even you'll get like a banner notification from things that don't necessarily imply to you of like, hey, you might like this person, go follow them. Like that could be a notification. That's just an easy way to get like sucked in a moment you weren't even thinking about being on your phone. And so get rid of notifications. You genuinely won't miss them, and you'll get to choose to get on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever it may be when you actually want to get on it. That would be a really easy step to do.
You got another one?
My second one?
Yeah,
sure. I would say take some time to just unplug. Like, have...
This is good. Listen to this one. Y'all
it can be...
do this one.
This would be good for y'all. This would be good for me
I want
right
to
now, too, after, like, a season of having to be on my phone. Yeah, I think take 24 hours. Pick a day when you're just not gonna be on any form of media. I think it'd be really hard for me. I think it'd be really hard for y'all, but in a way that's really, really good for us.
So, like, no media. You're saying for 24 hours you don't want me to, like, even use my 10 minutes on Instagram?
Correct. No media.
So
Throw your phone in the lake. You don't need it anymore.
I could just be on Netflix instead then.
No media.
Okay.
None of those easy leisure activities that you want to go to.
That sounds
if you're to get rid of it, I know, it sounds really hard. But I think it'd be so good for us.
Yeah, but literally, like, 30 years ago, we didn't even have, like, these media. Maybe a little longer.
It was great.
Yeah.
30 years
what did they do? Like, in a sense, we want you to, for 24 hours, like, get yourself to a place where you actually feel bored. Mm-hmm. Because I think, like, boredom is almost like a lost art. And so much, like,
do kids even feel bored anymore?
I don't think so.
I feel bored a lot. I always go, Mom.
You just cry. Yeah. I guess. I think it will be harder than, like, most people think to just, like, not use any of that for a 24-hour period. But hopefully during that period you realize, like, wow, I really am dependent on these things for my entertainment throughout the day. And two, hopefully it changes something about when you do reintroduce them, you know, that's like...
Yeah, gives you perspective, gives you some control,
For sure.
It would be great.
Yeah, I think you should just do that one, so I'll just skip my second one.
Great. If you're watching this, we're all committing to do that.
24-hour media fast.
We're going to come back better for it.
I'm going to be so bored. I'm going to build something crazy, or who knows.
It'll be great.
So how should we spend that time? Let's get into number 3, which is rest ambitiously. We're talking really about the category of not low-quality leisure now, but like some high-quality leisure activities, like rest that God designed for humans, you know, that is going to fill my soul and that I should, you know.
We love that kind of rest.
Oh, yeah.
It's the best.
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah. So rest ambitiously. I think something that I was reading when I was like getting ready for this, and I think it's important to say when we're talking about rest, is even just the definition of rest as a whole. We've kind of said like, okay, Sabbath is this, but like as we think about rest, I think it's important to like know that rest isn't necessarily defined with like inactivity or product. You know, like you don't even really need to use those when you talk about rest. It's more of just like more of a mental, spiritual state as you enter those things, inactivity or productivity. Like you don't have to be unproductive on a day of like, you might want to build something and that sounds incredible, or like you might want to sit there and watch a movie and that's inactive and incredible. Like it just kind of depends on like your mental, spiritual framework going into it, and I think that is important to talk about. And I think Matthew 11 talks about that a little bit. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I'm lowly and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So like literally like putting on the yoke of Jesus is something like we're wearing and carrying, but it feels good and it feels right, and it's like
a
enjoyable.
yoke is like a thing that oxen like wear on their necks, for those of you that
yeah. Sorry, I guess that's not really a word we use anymore.
Yeah, but he's saying like mine is light. It sounds
heavy. Yeah.
Like, come with me and I'll like carry the burden.
Like
for
enter
you.
my rest, so, like that spiritual mental state, whatever, however you want to put it. Like
Totally.
enter my rest, like put on my rest and feel the joy of just like being able to enjoy the things that like I've made on earth. And
I mean that mental piece you're talking about, like the author of this book, John Mark Comer, like he talks about, he's pretty good about having a weekly Sabbath, which isn't, it's not necessarily a sin if you don't have that. Like don't hear us wrong there, but he does have it because he knows that it is good for his soul, and he sees it now as something that like he would never think to neglect, because it's like the highlight of his week, right? Like get my laundry done, get the dishes done on Friday, and then on Saturday him and his family just like whatever we want to do that sounds like rest or worship or sparks joy, we can do whatever we want that day. Like that sounds awesome, and that's not a day that's like set aside so that you can be more productive when you go back to work. You will be more productive, but the mindset shift is, no, this is like the cap to my week. This is the day I've been looking forward to.
Like an amazing day to just
sounds
enjoy.
Sick.
Yeah.
Why do we fight against rest?
That's so good. Yeah. So if it's true that that is more of like a mental, spiritual state that we just get to enter into, I guess how do we pursue, if we don't want to do low quality leisure, how would we pursue rest? Like with high quality leisure, like what would that entail?
Well, we want to give you guys a laundry list of just like ideas to get you started in terms of like, if you wake up tomorrow and you have virtually nothing to do and want break to be restful, like here's some ideas. And we'll rattle off a couple of them, but I want to like categorize for you and define kind of high quality leisure before we do, just because I did that for low quality leisure. But kind of 3 traits of high quality leisure. If I was going to have a day to like rest, there would definitely be like a spiritual component. That doesn't mean there's a spiritual component to every activity that I'm doing, right? Like I may have some friends over and play a game or something, and that's not necessarily like we prayed up beforehand, right? But I am saying like if I have a day and I neglect to like go to God, who's the ultimate giver of rest, I'm neglecting like to rest ambitiously for myself. Second, a lot of high quality leisure has a relational component. We do need to find solitude, but we don't need to seek isolation, right? Like there's this shift happening towards isolation in our culture, and so like real rejuvenation often involves like face-to-face contact with other humans. And especially for me, like being extroverted, like if I have a day of rest, definitely there's a relational piece. And then third, instead of being unfruitful and not restful, like on the back end of high quality leisure is this like sense of satisfaction and like reward. And so even things that may like involve strenuous exercise, or like me to get up off the couch and do something, could still be qualified as rest if I see it as rest. It's enjoyable, So Bree, if you have a day of rest, like what are some things that you're doing to fill that time that's gonna result in like a rewarding rest day for you?
So I love waking up, making a slow breakfast. Normally involves pulling out my waffle maker, which I love, making a waffle. I love going for just a long walk, and not usually on my rest day. If I work out throughout the weekend, it's kind of like has to go a little quicker to fit into my day. I love just doing a walk that really like doesn't have a purpose or a point. It's just like walking to walk, and it's really enjoyable.
I'm already feeling rested.
Yeah, it's great. And I really love to bake on rest days at times, which is producing something. You have a great result after some baking, and I always feel really good after.
Wow.
Yeah.
Our rest days sound pretty different, I'll be honest.
What are yours?
But that's okay.
What are you doing on your rest day?
For me, an activity like reading is something where I've been trying for years to like get myself to a place where I'm reading so much that I like feel bad about it. Like I've never had a college student come to me and like, dude, I think I'm reading a sinful amount. There's just like something about activities like that it's not mindless. Like
it's high quality.
It is.
Yeah.
And so I love reading. I read You know.
You do. You read a lot.
Most.
How many books have you read this year? Brag on yourself for a second.
70.
It's a lot. 70.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Which, honestly, just keeping track on Goodreads feeds my achiever.
I know. Goodreads is great.
It is great.
Good app.
Secondly, I would try this. I mean, board games are fun, but specifically like in the daytime. Mm-hmm. Oh, you got to be intentional if you're gonna have a daytime board game.
Who are you playing with?
Happen.
Who's around?
Oh, you know, I'd probably invite Eric over. Probably invite Nashon, our drummer, and maybe Jason and Nick, those grad student boys that are still around town.
Nice.
Who knows what we play, but doesn't matter.
A little bit of coup.
It's just restful. Third, you know, I like to move around again. Like a totally sedentary day I don't feel good at the end of that. Yeah. So maybe a little yoga with Adrian.
Really?
On YouTube.
You've been doing yoga?
I do some days. I don't do it every rest day.
That's good.
I think I feel good and rested when I do.
Yeah, that's great. So, good stretch. Full body stretch. A little work. Nice.
Well, there's 6 ideas to get you started. We'll post about 20 of them or so on our Instagram page, and that pretty much concludes what we have to say about rest.
Yeah.
And do hope you guys take time. Mm-hmm. You'll have time, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And so we want you to take time to just enjoy the Lord. Mm-hmm. You know. Yep. Unplug a bit. And
actually, do you want to do some quick hitter questions really fast?
Oh, yeah,
I think we have a couple.
Yeah, great.
Y'all send us a few questions.
Why not?
Let's make Derek answer them real quick here.
Why not?
All right, first one is, how to rest my family is driving me crazy, but I also want to love them well.
Respect for wanting to love them well. And I totally get the family driving you crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, college is weird, and you're going to have to figure out some family dynamics with going back now that you've tasted some autonomy, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it would just be okay to say, or fair to say at least, that you need to know what is restful for you, from a relational end. And if that's not your family, first of all, sorry, you know, but that's also partially my family too sometimes, you know? Mm-hmm. And so if you have been spending ample time with them and need to get away for a bit, that's okay. And you don't have to be blunt to them about it, but maybe there's friends back home that you can find that do fill your tank and hang out with them for the day or whatever. But that way, hopefully you can come back and spend ample time, but not be constantly angry and bitter. And
be ready to love your family.
Totally.
Yeah. Yep, that's good. All right, second question. I default to laziness, so I guess my question would be, is there such a thing as too much rest?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there is. Again, God worked for 6 days, rested on the 7th one. Mm-hmm. But I almost think that, again, laziness and too much rest are a little bit different of things. It's hard to have too much high-quality leisure. Mm-hmm. Especially over a season like winter break. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you could do it. It is possible to feel guilty over having too much of the low quality leisure because you're too afraid to set rules, if you will, or boundaries for those things, which definitely should have boundaries if you want to, you know, not let them rule you. Yep. So that's probably where that answer or question is coming from, more so is the low quality leisure piece. And I would say, take steps to not spend as much time there. But
that's good. That's all we got.
That's all we literally. We're done now. I'm gonna take a little break from social media myself. Yeah,
I am as well.
I'm gonna go home, spend time with my family, and we're done with Fireside Salts. So we're not done with Salt Company forever. We're not done caring for you guys.
That'll still be going on.
But you won't be hearing as much from us until after the new year. Yeah. And so we're excited to come back and be on the lookout. I think we're going to do a little, Bree and I at least are going to go maybe do a little skiing and snowboarding somewhere on the 15th or 16th of January.
Heck yeah.
So.
Come join us.
Yeah, I'd love for it to not just be Bree and I.
That would be.
But.
Still fun, but.
Yeah.
I mean.
At least Sydney
please come.
Should come. Yeah. Eric, you coming?
I'll be there.
Erickson. Come on, guys.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. But if nothing else, man, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Text us, DM us.
Yeah, whatever question you have about this Fireside Salt, any Fireside Salt questions in general, we're always available.
I need relational components to my rest, so don't be afraid.
be that for Derek.
Yep.
He needs you.
Yep.
But we love you guys. Hope you have a great Christmas and Happy New Year.